Hey guys, checking out Assassin's Creed Unity Dead Kings today. Liana here. Yes, the much maligned Assassin's Creed Unity. I don't care. I like this game. I think it's a beautiful game, and that's part of the reason I want to show you guys the game and the expansion pack, which is free if you bought the game. As a we screwed up and we're sorry from Ubisoft, which I like because other game companies screw up and don't do any sort of make good. They're just like, our fans understand. No, fans don't understand. Fans get really angry, but they can't do anything about it. But I picked Assassin's Creed Unity today because some of you may have seen a little article I put up about my ongoing struggles with the fans of feminist frequency. And the response to that article has been mostly really affirming. It's been a very positive response, and I just wanted to say thank you for that. Thank you guys for being cool. There have been some people that have been predictably not cool. What I've been surprised at is who those people are. The angriest dudes about the whole thing, white guys, like younger white guys who consider themselves, advocates for equality. And that's when I feel like, obviously there's when you write something like that, you, some nice violence there for you guys. When you write something as contentious as something that takes on feminist frequency, you expect there to be some backlash. The question is backlash you can handle. And I had some predictions about who was going to be angry about the whole thing. And they're predictions obviously based on what I think feminist frequency is attracting. And so far, my predictions have been right, and that is to say it's people who mean quite well. They really think they're for equality, but it's equality on their terms. It's equality based on their personal in-group that they're comfortable with, and not true diversity or a tolerant society. And I say this because of the fact that there's a real disconnect in the way the people that decided to complain about what I wrote said. And, in my opinion, and obviously I'm going to say this, but in my opinion, there's nothing to complain about of that article. That article is my opinions and my experiences. And I flat out say that I don't want, and I just missed the hat there. I don't want feminist frequency to stop existing. I want them to keep going. I just want them to clean up their elements of their methodology. That's really mild. That's not a personal attack. That's not outside the realm of fair comment. That is respectful. Talk about the idea. Don't attack the person. I had one guy call that awful because I said that young women are. I'm surprised by the young women who walk around angry and blame men for their problems. And so I thought I'd elaborate on that since it struck this guy the wrong way, and maybe I wasn't as clear as I could have. What I mean is, anger is a part of youth, sure. But there comes a point in time that you have to recognize that blame and accountability are two different things, and you're a participant in your own life. If you, the whole idea of empowerment, this concept of empowerment that we go on and on. I don't like that. There's no such thing as empowerment. When you're striving for empowerment, that means you're granting other people the opportunity to give you power. You don't see it as something you inherently have. And I get the purpose of it. I get why we talk about it. My personal philosophy is that if you don't own your own power, if you're not accountable for your power inherently, people are going to take that from you every chance they get. And that's what I'm seeing with these, fairly attractive, young, first world white guys that are deciding to take me on and, in the name of all that is holy or whatever. Um, but the issue is no matter how these guys slice it based on their own ideology, they are a man telling a woman something about being a woman. Because that's what the piece is about. It's my experiences as a woman. And nobody's as big an authority on my experiences but me. And why? Because I own my shit. And that's the thing, that these guys who are, we believe in equality, then seek to judge my opinions. And what's funny about these guys that do that, and I'm all for a good debate. Those of you who know me know that's an understatement. But the thing that gets me about these guys is they don't want to debate. They want to mock and they want to backstab. But they don't debate. They don't actually give me details about what they had issue with unless you drag it out of them. And when people do that, when people hint and they deflect and they're like, come chase me in a conversation, that's them controlling the conversation. They may not even realize they're doing it. But that's that, indirect, manipulative crap that I spent years of my life training myself out of. Because guess what? That's what they train women to do. And I can't stand it because I had to deprogram that from myself. I had to learn how to express myself in an assertive, direct way. And that's a huge thing that more and more men are having trouble with as we conflate aggression and violence more and more and encourage men to feel guilty for aggressive impulses that they don't necessarily act on, they just admit they feel. Women too. I mean, God, women are not allowed to be aggressive. It drives me crazy. Because, for God's sakes, I know firsthand, look at the game I'm playing. Like, this is aggression, and I enjoy it. Stabby. I like that. See? I like that. Who are these guys? Are they yeah, they're on my team because they're not dressed well. So there's a lot of conflict going on inside these people who are telling other people how to live. And that's the big concern, is that at the end of the day, equality means one person, one voice. Not one person, angry mob, 5,000 voices, right? And this idea that I talked about these angry women that this guy took offense at was the fact that there are a lot of people under the feminist banner blaming men for their problems, and that's not feminism. That's what feminism was designed to take us away from. Feminism's intended to get us to a point where we don't have to blame men for our problems because we're equal, right? And the problem is if you truly sorry, I'm just checking my map, guys. Oh, there's a if you truly believe you exist in a sexist environment, guess what? Your complaints are going to fall on deaf ears. So there's no point going on about sexism, because if you're truly in a sexist environment, they're not going to listen to you, and it's just going to you're just going to make things worse for yourself. Learn from my mistakes. If you truly work in a sexist workplace, or if you truly exist in a sexist environment, calling out that sexism, oh boy. So if you're in an environment where you can say that's sexist without massive repercussions, you're in a pretty equal opportunity workplace, and it's important to acknowledge that. And so since you're in an equal opportunity workplace, you don't need to blame sexism for your problems, because they're not responsible for your problems. You're allowed to speak your mind. I know this is really circular logic. I apologize. because it's kind of confusing. This is something I had to learn through trial and error, and it set me back a lot of times. I made a lot of, rhetorical and bargaining mistakes because of it. And that's why I think it's so important, and that's why I want to talk about it. That in a truly sexist environment, you can't call sexism on something. Trust me. I've been in situations where I thought the people I was working with were more open-minded and equal-minded than they were. And I found out the hard way that I was wrong. Now, that's when sexism is really a problem. But when sexism's really a problem, going, that's sexist, doesn't solve the problem because guess what? It's sexist. They're not going to listen to me because I'm a woman, and so they think I'm inherently inferior. And the problem is when people actually hold those views, they don't really know it. They don't really know it. When someone is truly sexist, they don't think anything is wrong with the way they think. They're otherwise, I won't even say otherwise, they're usually good people who have just been taught, and they don't even realize they've been taught this, that women are inherently inferior. And I got this week, that we're moody. I was moody. A guy said he would talk to me when I was in a better mood. And this is one of these things where it's like, no, I was in a perfectly fine mood until the guy came by and started acting like an asshole. And even then, I wasn't actually in a bad mood. I was having him on, you know. And of course, the guy was an MRA. And guess what, MRAs? You want to deal with feminism's credibility problem? Keep doing what you're doing with this make me a sandwich garbage and things like that, because that's a great way to get people to stop listening to you. If you truly are for men's rights and not, sexist assholes hiding your bad habits through a political movement, stop commenting on women's moods. Even if you think it, the same way I know, don't talk about sexism, even if you think it in a working environment. Don't say a woman is moody. Because if she is, it isn't going to go well for you. And if she isn't, guess what? You're a sexist prick. And this is the thing. There are certain things where, and this is what I've learned about the whole gender thing and sexism thing, and that if you get to the point where you start thinking it, that's precisely where you have to stop, take a breath, and really examine the situation. Because when you start thinking that, yeah, it means there's a problem. You have to be very careful in identifying the source of the problem before going forward and understanding the realities of your situation. And obviously, this is the reason why I picked Assassin's Creed Unity, because as the Let's Play today, because here's an example of a game, and I mean, look at it. This game is freaking stunning. Like, oh, hello, enemy. This is a beautiful game. What was the thing most people heard about this game before it came out? The lack of female playable characters. And these are the moments when the whole storm was going on, and of course I tried to pitch a few articles about, my opinions on the whole thing, which is, let's let the game come out before we jump all over it. Of course, no. Because the problem is, when you're a woman writing in games right now, you tend to be somewhat limited to quote-unquote progressive sites, which aren't that progressive. Because the less progressive sites think that, women don't know anything about games, and the quote-unquote progressive sites think women don't know anything about games and try to hide it better. That was a joke. Don't take that as literal. There are quite a few sites actually run by completely decent people who are just afraid of taking on any feminist analysis or, any gender critique of any way, because it's such a hot button. They don't want the problem. So, Assassin's Creed Unity was was a victim of this in that there was this massive controversy. And I mean, don't tell me when your game is being subjected to unfair criticism in the last couple months of its development that it doesn't affect the fine-tuning process. That's not making excuses for the amount of bugs. It's just, let's face it, that's a massive distraction, especially in a company like Ubisoft, which is, wow, one of those companies that think what you want about them in other ways. They legitimately care about inclusivity and diversity, and you can see it in their offices. When you go to a UB office, it looks different because, like, hey, there are people of color here, and there are women here, and there's more than one. And it's sad that this is still notable in a video game company, but it is. And so, I mean, I know they were pissed off, and I know they were hurt, and, they were real good about not saying anything about it, but you could see it in their eyes, because they knew what they'd made. And they knew they couldn't talk about what they'd made, because there was no winning once they were accused of, the big bad S word, sexism. And they could have handled the response better, but what they did in this game with gender is so nuanced that you couldn't tackle it as a marketing person. It's one of those things that is best for a player to just come to it, and either they're going to get it or they don't. Because what Unity does is uses masculinity and a form of male gaze theory to make some pretty profound statements about women. And it all hinges on the unique quality of Paris as a city. We're not in Paris right now. I don't know which city this is, but it's not Paris in the DLC. But the thing about Paris is it's a city that way back in the day was consecrated to Jupiter, which is, significant in Assassin's Creed mythology. But at the center of the center of Paris, which is, if you've seen Les Mis, is the city of angry men, is Notre Dame Cathedral, which means Our Lady. And they use this to play on gender conventions in a really amazing way. But the only way the story in Unity works is if your perspective as a player is deliberately narrowed through a male protagonist. And that's fine. Because the real complex character in this game is Elise. And, the love interest in the Romeo and Juliet thing. But she's complex because you're not in her head. You have this very symbiotic relationship with the assassin you're playing, Arnaud in this case. But the Templars are always, female Templar. That's heavy. And I think they handled it really well. I think they said a lot of very interesting things about, the role of women in society and the role of women in gaming. In that if we're really going to be treated as equals, especially as characters, then we need to be allowed to have harm befall us. We need to be allowed to be put in compromised situations and get jammed up. The trick is to be able to get ourselves out of it, to not make that peril or that loss be just a plot device that moves forward the story of a male protagonist. That's the real issue for most people. Not that women are imperiled at all. And, I mean, in the Assassin's Creed games, I think the Assassin's Creed games have taken a big leap forward with Rogue and Unity, in that they do have women right in the middle of the action, and they do get hurt, and some of them die. And I think that's great. Because it is equal. And let's face it, Assassins and Templars don't fall asleep warm and cozy in their beds. They tend to die violently. And that's just the deal. It's the deal when you sign up. It's the deal for men. It's the deal for women. And that's cool. Like, that's where we've got to be in video games. It's just, women are equals. We're our own characters. Sure. We may not come at something the same way as a man does. I mean, Hope in Assassin's Creed Rogue doesn't solve problems the same way that Shay does. But she's, a force. And that's something that I think we're doing wrong in the discussion of violence against women. Well, it's violence against everybody, guys. It's action video games. They're bloody. And what you think about that is a separate issue. Whoop, lag. From whether or not women are equality of opportunity in games and equality of representation in games. Completely different issues. And so this is something we're going to have to confront, and this is something we're going to have to own. And how does this dovetail into the angry women comment? Well, if you've had a bad experience, if you've had a bad experience with men and it has to deal with violence, and I'm speaking from experience, had to go through a lot of stuff, you have to make sure you've put that to bed, that that's not an active pain, before you start trying to analyze artistic representations that deal with stuff that might hit a little too close to home. You got to make sure you're over it until you start analyzing it. Because yes, the personal is political. That's been a feminist mantra since the second wave. But we are responsible for the personal elements of our lives that we politicize. And if we go around falsely labeling things as a problem, well, we're going to get really bland art, and we're not going to get included because it's protection over representation. It's protection over inclusion. And, if women can't be hurt, if nothing bad can happen, well, then we're going to be left out of the game because, getting hurt is part of the job description in a game like this. There's got a lot of gamers need fail conditions, which means deaths. And if people have an inherent problem with that, well, then it's going to be hard to include women as protagonists in games. And this is a really big topic, and obviously we're not going to do all of this rambling while I'm free running in an open world game. But, I'm hoping to sort of get you thinking about that, because that's something I'm sort of going to be exploring more and more once the dust kind of settles on this latest thing. So for now, I'm just going to say to the people that took the time to read it and offer support and be cool about it and be sincere in their support, I just want to say thank you. Because I know that's not the typical internet gamer dialogue thing. So, I really appreciate you guys having my back and appreciating that it was a risk. It was one of those risks that I didn't really think about until I was halfway through and went, oh my God, what am I doing? But, thanks for getting it. And thanks for showing that there is a place for feminism in gaming, and the gamers aren't going to just reject out of hand anything with the label feminist on it. So, I wasn't sure how it was going to go over. I wasn't sure if all those rumors were true. It was a test, right? And it turned out that the negatives people said about gamers weren't true. That gamers are open to a feminist perspective as long as they feel it's something they can relate to, and it's something that treats games as games and doesn't misrepresent the products to try to make a point. And who can argue with that, right? So that's my thank you to you guys. Greatly appreciate it, more than I can say. Now I just got to get better at this Patreon Kickstarter thing, because I still really suck at that. Momo's very good at it. Momo's brought in a bunch of dough. Momo's paid for his kitty food. But Momo is my superior in every way, and that's because he's a cat. Not because... Okay, on that joke, we're gonna leave it there. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Thanks for your support. Again, greatly appreciated. Keep requesting topics, please. Keep requesting games. Somebody requested a Final Fantasy game. And I'm like, oh God, but I am considering it because I do want to give you guys the content you want to see. But oh God, Final Fantasy. No. Okay, guys, keep watching. See you on the internet.